Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm actually in the back of my garage right now behind the Civic, working on a little project that I'm going to try and tackle today and see if I can fix the issue. So what happened is one of my speakers on the Civic was blown. So when I got the car, it wasn't working. The previous owner had this speaker just tucked underneath the seat and everything. So I was like, okay, well, this is clearly not working. I hooked it up, tried to get sound going through it, but nothing came through. So I'm guessing something's damaged with the voice coil. Everything on the speaker, this is the speaker right here, looks fine. The rubber woofer and all that kind of stuff is all intact. There's nothing wrong with it, but for some reason there's no sound. So I'm thinking it's something to do with the voice coil. So what we're going to do today is actually run some tests on the speaker and see if we can fix the issue. So this is my little workstation here. It's basically a chair with a piece of cardboard, and I'm using this as a table essentially to work on the speaker stuff. So what you'll need to run some tests is a multimeter, a battery, and some wires. So essentially, I'm going to run the same test on a good speaker, and then I'm going to run the same test on this speaker and show you that this is actually blown. So the first test is basically you're gonna hook it up to the negative lead here. With the negative lead hooked up, you're gonna use. So this is attached wire, so you just need one piece of wire essentially. So the negative lead hooks onto the back of this lead, and then you basically tap it against the other side. And as you can see, and here, the speaker is actually bumping. So this shows that this speaker, the voice coil, is fine on it. If you run the same test on this speaker, it's a whole different story. So you would hook this up to the negative lead. Okay, so you hook it up to negative, and then you tap on the other side. As you can see, nothing. So speaker is definitely not working on this one. So the next trick, outside of using the battery, is you will use a multimeter and test the resistance between these two leads, the positive and the negative. So I set mine to about 200 ohms on my multimeter, and when you touch the leads together, basically it would come down to a certain resistance, because these wires have some resistance. But essentially, if you set on another settings, they'll go to 0. So as close to 0 as possible basically has resistance. So you'll touch these two leads, and you notice that this has about 3 or some sort of resistance. Well, this multimeter isn't 100% accurate, but this is to gauge that this has resistance, and that means the voice coil is fine on this one. It is actually not shorted or anything like that. When you run the same test on this speaker here, on the other hand, you see nothing. So there's definitely a short somewhere in the voice coil, which is why this speaker is not working. So today we're going to actually attempt to take off this cap and trace the wire and see if we can fix the issue. So what you'll need is some acetone. I've read online that this helps dissolve the glue in the dust cap. So I'm just going to get some acetone and go around, and then I have a little precision X-Acto kit here. So I'm going to set up with one of these precision knives, and I'm going to go around and see if I can cut through around the glue. So to glue this back, people say you could just use regular original Gorilla Glue, so that's what I'm going to do if I fix the issue. But for now, let's just start putting in some acetone on to melt some of the glue, depending on how old this glue is. So basically just using some cotton swabs and just drizzling it in there. You can use an eyedropper as well. So my X-Acto kit didn't work so well, so I actually ended up using my trusty precision screwdriver and gently working around the dust cap to pop it off. Next, with the help of my needle nose pliers and my precision screwdriver, I pulled the voice coil out. So, looks like it is the voice coil that was busted. You can see the short here. One of the wires just snapped. Hey guys, so after about a month of waiting, I finally got the voice coils that I ordered off AliExpress. Honestly, I was going to make my own voice coils and install them, but it was cheaper to just buy already pre-made ones and, you know, less chance of me messing it up, right? So it was actually cheaper because the Kaplan paper and also the copper wire and all that stuff, I priced it all out. It would cost too much to repair the speaker. I might as well have just bought a brand new speaker. But these voice coils that I bought off AliExpress were similar dimension that I needed, and they only cost about $5 Canadian. So, you know, if this works out, it's a $5 fix for my speakers that were retailing for like 300 bucks. So that's a pretty good fix. But I'll show you guys the voice coils right now. So these are the voice coils. I got them. They look pretty good. The wiring is, the copper wire is actually a little bit thinner than the ones that were originally on the Pioneer speaker, but you know, that's okay. And they might be a little bit taller, but you know, the diameter of the circle and everything seems like it will fit. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to install these, and you know, I'll show you guys the process. So first things first, you're gonna have to see if the voice coil will fit into this hole. It didn't, because there was a lot of, I guess, glue and crap in here. So what I did was I took my rotary tool with a sanding bit on it, and I just kind of grinded it all down and everything. With this speaker, there's actually a couple leads in here. I'm not sure if you can see it. Like there's one right there, and there's one on the other side as well. Each one of those, like, it matches to the positive and negative on the back. So the wiring is actually on the woofer, unlike some speakers where it's like popping on the outside here where there's a piece of wire. This one's actually right on the woofer. So when I sanded it down, you could clearly see it. So we're gonna have to solder the voice coil directly to this woofer. So, but since I sanded it down, you see there's all this debris inside there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna blow it all out with my air compressor, and then try to clean it out as best as I can before I put in the voice coil. But you should take the voice coil and kind of match it up to see if it will fit. All right, guys. So I've cleaned out the speaker, so it's all nice and clean after I blew it out with my air compressor. And then you want to test fit the coil to make sure that it fits in there nicely. But as you can see, it actually goes in there pretty good, and it goes back and forth pretty easily. So that's kind of what you want. So next is I'm gonna have to measure the depth of this magnet, because you do not want the coil to be sitting all the way at the bottom. It has to kind of come up to a certain level. So I'm gonna measure it just to see. And how I'm gonna do that is with a piece of paper. I'm gonna just whatever, cue card or whatever. So I'm just gonna cut a strip of this and then mark it on there to see how deep it goes. All right, so it goes all the way there, as you can see. It's all the way at the bottom. You just want to mark the top here. Yep. So this is as far as it goes on this line here. Then you want to see how far it is on the voice coil. So I read online that it should be about 1 coil distance. So essentially what you want is it to just be peeking out a little bit from the top there. Let's reposition this. Kind of hard to see.
I wonder if I can mark it on the inside. So I want it to be basically as high enough as that mark there. Basically around there. That's where I want the coil to be sitting. So I think that's pretty good right there. Unfortunately, if I glue it like this, the cap's not gonna fit. So here's the cap. So that's definitely not gonna fit. So I'm gonna have to trim this coil down a little bit. I mean this voice coil. I don't really want to, but I think I have to for it to fit in here properly. I remember measuring the original one. It's about 1 1/5 inch. So about 30 millimeters from the bottom. So I'm assuming I'm gonna have to get that as well. I'm just gonna get a ruler, measure it up to about 30 millimeters, and then just trim it around. So I kind of marked it. I'm gonna have to trim off about 1 centimeter here. So I carefully pulled back these wires. I just cut a little bit here, and then the wires are sharp enough to kind of cut them back anyways. So the paper, now I should have enough room to just trim that little excess off. I think I'm just gonna use some scissors and see how it goes. There you go, all nicely trimmed. So let's see how this fits now. Now basically I have to solder these little wires onto the sides there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this coil all the way in, and then I'm going to solder them to the woofer, and then I'm going to try to pull this back out a little bit and then epoxy glue the rest, and that should fix it. There we go. Now that it is on here, we want to test out the rear to make sure that it has resistance. So it is in now. You get a voltmeter out and just measure the resistance between these. And it is working. Let's just turn it to lowest resistance. Yeah, so it's about 6 ohms or whatever, but that is kind of, I'm not going to trust my voltmeter because it is a little off, but seeing that it has ohms, which is good, and that means that these leads are connected to this now, so I could actually start trim these little wires off. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it first. After I finish gluing it with epoxy, that's when I'm going to trim it. So for me to ensure that this stuff doesn't move, I'm just going to stick a couple of pieces of these paper into the inside so that it doesn't really move. So I'm just going to use some Q-tips, cut off the ends to mix my epoxy. Should be using some wooden stuff, but whatever. And I'm using this Gorilla epoxy. You've seen me probably use it in a previous video, maybe not. But this stuff works pretty good. So just make sure it's even parts. I'm mixing it on one of these containers. Yeah, I used it to hold parts, but I mixed epoxy on this lid before, so. So just mix it up till it's nice and uniform. All right, so that's nicely mixed up. And it's time to just spread it all over the speaker. Try not to get it on the paper. You don't want to glue the paper to it. Well, that's quite difficult not to get it on the paper, so I'll just rip the paper off after. Maybe I should take the paper off now. Not that in there. There we go. Got enough epoxy on there. I don't really care how it looks. It's just as long as it, you know, it fixes the speaker and all. I better wipe some of this epoxy off my hands. So the epoxy is still setting here. So I'm just gonna wait for it to completely set and dry. And then I'm gonna trim the little wires out of there. And then I'm gonna put this dust cap back on. To glue this dust cap, I'm just gonna use some contact cement and then glue it on. After that, I'm just gonna test out the speaker. So I'll show you guys once this is all set and finish, and then we'll test out the speaker and see if it's fixed. All right, so now that the speaker is operating and it is working, we could glue on the dust cap. So what I'm going to be doing is putting on some of this heavy duty contact cement. So as per the instructions of this stuff, you kind of slap it on both surfaces, wait for it to dry, which about 15 minutes, and then you press them together. So let's just go ahead and do that. All right, so the adhesive should be pretty dry now. So let's just test it on a piece of paper if it sticks or not. So it is not transferring on any paper anymore, so it should be good to stick on. Yeah. And there we go. All fixed. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video of me fixing the voice coil on my speaker. It's a pretty simple process, and I hope this helps you guys out. So the Civic project still continues. I'm going to be doing the body filler and all that kind of stuff on the passenger side rocker soon. So stay tuned for that. But if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.